Hello, friends. Welcome to Chickenlandia and welcome to Bawk Tawk, your 100% friendly backyard chickens show. I am your host, Dahlia, also known as the president of Chickenlandia. I'm a backyard chicken educator that has found peace and joy in the chicken yard, and it is my mission to help you find that too. Okay, friends, today is episode 3 of season 6. We are going to talk about Coccidiosis. Say that 3 times fast. It is a very common chicken disease that can affect baby chicks, and it can also affect adult chickens, and it can be really devastating. It can be fatal. So we're going to get into the facts of it. We are going to talk about how to prevent it. And then this is part 1. So we will have part 2 of this series. And in that part, we are going to chat about how to identify it and the different treatment options that are available if it does hit your flock. So I had to divide this into 2 episodes because if I didn't, this would be 2 hours long. And I don't have 2 hours in me today, friends. I'm barely holding it together now, okay, if you want to know the truth. So I do want to warn you, it might be a little bit of a wait for part 2 of this series because I don't know how this is going to turn out. Right now, my family is supposed to go on vacation. But it turns out that that might not happen because of my husband's work situation. He sometimes gets called for work like last minute, and it's just the nature of my family. If you guys don't know, my husband's an aerial cinematographer, which is a really, really cool job. He does cinematography from the helicopter. Only a few people in the world do it. It's really neat. But sometimes it's like, oh, I've got a job. Sorry, we're not going on vacation. So that might happen. I don't know. So, but I really wanted to get detailed information about this sometimes deadly disease out to you. So we're starting now and we're hoping for the best. All right. So I'm going to chat about coccidiosis for a little bit. And then I have a listener question that was submitted through my website, welcome to chickenlandia.com, and I'll be answering that. And then after that, I'm going to open up the chat here live on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and X for your questions. If you want to submit a question to Bawk Tawk, all you have to do is go to welcome to chickenlandia.com, go to the contact section, and click Ask a Chicken Question. And while you are there, you're going to want to join the mailing list, Chickenlandia Nation. And when you join that list, I send you a discount for my online course, Chickenlandia's Backyard Chickens 101, a chicken course for everyone, because it is for everyone. This is my super fun interactive course, and it's a great way to get direct access to me. I know some of you guys have questions that you just want to talk to me, directly about, and I really can't do that. Like if I did that, that's all I would do. I would not have time to put out all this free content that's for everybody. So I have to prioritize my course students. So it's a great course, and I hope to see you there. Okay, I'm going to say hi to some of the people in the chat. Hello, Mary Abbott. You were just reading my book. Oh, thank you. Nominal is here. The Naked Gardeners are here. I have something funny to tell you guys, but I'll wait. Robin is here. T. Oliver, Whitney, Hoffman, Jennifer, Megan. Oh, Ontario. Yay. That's where we're supposed to go on vacation. Might not happen. That's okay. Joy is here. Cindy's here. Oh, there's the Chickenlandia presidential advisor. She's here. Bebe the cat. Yay. Hello, Sheila. Hi, how are you? Southern Art 77. Yay. Look at all these people that are here. Thank you so much for being here. And Jackie Smith is here. Oh, hi. Hi. Thank you for being here. Okay. So let's get into it. Let's do it, friends. So basically, in every chicken yard, even super well cared for chicken yards, there are little tiny parasitic protozoa called Coccidia. And Coccidia are ubiquitous, and that means that they are basically present everywhere in our environment where there are animals. And if you were to go out into your chicken yard and take a look at your beautiful flock, you can bet that each and every chicken in your flock has Coccidia present in their bodies. This is normal. It doesn't mean that you've done anything wrong, and it doesn't mean that your chickens are sick. Okay, that's like their normal state. These single-celled microscopic parasites are considered host specific. Oh gosh, I'm gonna get through this, y'all. That means that there are strains that only affect chickens. There are strains for different wild birds. There are strains for turkeys, for geese, for rats, for cats, for dogs, etc. Okay? And they don't, if there's a strain for chickens, it's not going to affect rats. Okay? The genus that's within the class of Coccidia that causes disease in chickens are called Eimeria. All right? So there are several known strains of Eimeria that can be found in chickens. Not all of them will cause disease. Some of them can cause mild disease, and some don't cause any symptoms at all. Okay? Even the ones that cause severe disease, they need certain conditions, both within the living environment of your flock and also within a chicken's body in order to reach disease level infestations. Okay, I got to do something really quick because my husband's computer turned on and it's getting on my nerves. Boop. There we go. So, the best case scenario for a chicken to gain immunity against coccidiosis is through early exposure to their natural outdoor environment. And you will see this best case scenario most often when a mother hen raises baby chicks. That's why, I don't think we completely understand everything that's going on there, but baby chicks that are raised by mother hens, even though they're exposed to so much, they seem to always be a little bit more resilient, a little bit healthier than baby chicks that are raised in a brooder. So, these chicks are going to get exposed to all kinds of things in the chicken yard, and they're going to gradually acquire immunity to those things over time. And that includes parasites that at the level of infestation can be very bad for your chickens. Okay? And I promise you, I am not saying this to discourage anyone from raising baby chicks in a brooder. If you decide to do that, I love doing that. Okay? If you want to do that, you can take on the role of their mother hen and gradually expose your baby chicks to their natural environment, either by taking them outside for little field trips and giving them an opportunity to peck and scratch the earth. Or if it's really cold outside or for whatever reason you can't take them outside, you can grab a clump of dirt and grass from your yard and you can put it in their brooder. And doing this can help get them that early exposure and hopefully grant them immunity against the Coccidia in the soil in your yard. Okay? So if you do this, or if you have baby chicks that are raised by a mother hen, does this mean that they're never going to get sick? No, it doesn't mean that. Okay? They can still get coccidiosis. We live on planet Earth. And when it comes to nature, nothing is guaranteed. All right? But I do believe that this will give you the best chance of avoiding coccidiosis in your flock and other diseases as well. But there are a few things to consider regarding prevention in general. So, Coccidia need we talked about this a little bit earlier, but Coccidia needs certain conditions in their environment in order to reach infestation level. Okay? Obviously, an environment that is very dirty with either mud or feces or both, that is going to be a very dangerous environment because those are the perfect conditions for Coccidia to multiply and reach those dangerous levels. Another huge factor in avoiding coccidiosis in your flock, but also avoiding disease, plus many other problems in general, is stress. So you really want to keep the stress levels down with your baby chicks or with your adult flock, but especially in new baby chicks, and especially if they were shipped. So you need to be mindful if they were shipped about making sure that they get warm enough when they arrive to you, that they have a chance to kind of just decompress without being handled too much those first 24 hours. I know it's really hard, like especially if you have kids and you bring these baby chicks home. Like let's say you went to the farm store and you got a batch of baby chicks. You bring them home and the kids are like super excited. They want to hold the chicks, and you can give them that moment, and you can also take that moment when you're moving them from where, the package that you brought them home into their brooder. But after that, you really need to kind of let them decompress, make sure everybody's eating and drinking, and just let them be. Okay, you're going to have a lot of time to connect with them, and it's a good opportunity for you to explain to your kids, like, look, I know that they're super cute and we want to hold them, but they're also having an experience, and we need to think about what that experience is like from their perspective. And so that kind of gets them started and having some empathy for these animals, and it's good for them. It's a really good lesson for them. So, during that first 24 hours, just give them some time to decompress, make sure that they have all of their needs met, obviously food, water, warmth, etc. If chickens have other conditions present, such as, a lack of nutrition or other conditions like a pasty butt or getting chilled, or if they're sick in some other way, like if an adult chicken is sick in some other way, these conditions can create a pathway for coccidiosis to take hold. All right. So first and foremost, if your flock is being cared for properly, which I'm sure they are, if you're watching this right now, your flock is very likely being cared for properly. If you have good husbandry practices, if your flock lives a balanced life without overcrowding or stress or tons of poop and mud in their environment, then your risk of coccidiosis is going to be way lower, just from doing those things. Okay. And even if you do get hit with something like coccidiosis or any other disease, the outcome is going to be so much better if you have these conditions in place, if you have these good practices in place. Remember, like, coccidiosis is a huge problem in factory farms, and medicated feed was created for factory farms because the conditions in these places are super stressful. They're dirty, and they're conditions that are not even great, not even conducive to life, much less avoiding disease. So those are the things that we have to remember when we're thinking about this. But I want to talk a little bit more about medicated feed because I know many of you are going to want to ask me about it, and we're going to talk about the vaccine too, but let's start with medicated feed. So whether or not you use medicated feed when you raise baby chicks is a risk versus risk thing. And let me just tell you, well, maybe I wrote it in here. If not, we'll figure it out. Okay. Everyone's situation is going to be different. So it's not completely a black and white thing. I know in the chicken world, we want everything to be black and white, and we kind of treat everything that way, but there's nuance to it when you're making this decision. In general, for backyard chickens, I don't recommend medicated feed. And the reason for that is because, first of all, generally the conditions in a backyard, if you're doing everything the way that you're supposed to be doing, you're not going to have like a situation where it's very likely that coccidia is going to be able to, just breed out of control. So we're taking that into consideration. The other thing is that, even though medicated feed is fairly benign, it's got a medication in it, at a preventative level. So there's a preventative dose of the medication in medicated feed, and that medication is called Amprolium. And another, it's also called Corid, like that's the brand name for it, but it's called Amprolium. This is an old medication. It's been around for a long time, and it's pretty safe. But I will tell you that the way that it works is by mimicking thiamine, because coccidia need thiamine in order to survive. So the issue with this is that chickens also need thiamine. So, thiamine is considered the stress vitamin, and a thiamine deficiency can cause problems in a flock. In fact, it's one of the main deficiencies that causes something called wryneck, which is difficult to deal with, especially for new chicken keepers. So the medicated feed will affect the levels of thiamine in your baby chicks, okay? And if you're giving them baby chicks in medicated feed will get a preventative dose of Amprolium. And then if you have adult chickens that are getting, and we're going to talk about this more in part 2, but if you have adult chickens that have coccidiosis, you'll be giving them the treatment dose of Amprolium. Okay. So, I won't judge you. Did I already talk about wryneck? I can't even remember. I think I did. So thiamine deficiency can cause wryneck. All right. And that's really, really hard to deal with. So all of this to say, even though medicated feed is relatively safe, and I would never judge anybody for choosing that option, you should know that it comes with some level of risk. Okay. You'll have to decide whether, which level of risk is greater. Is the risk for coccidiosis greater, or is the risk of medicated feed greater? And if you have some of the risk factors for coccidiosis in your flock, like you've had chickens come down with it and you've lost chickens before from it, or you've got lots of mud, or that's really difficult to control in your flock, then it wouldn't be unreasonable for you to consider using it. Okay, that will be up to you. If you do decide to use medicated feed, follow the directions on the feed bag to a T. Don't keep them on it longer than they should be, and don't put adult chickens on it. Okay. Because not only can it cause a thiamine deficiency if you don't use it right, but keeping chickens on it can make it harder to treat them for coccidiosis if they get it later in life. All right. It can just affect how well medications are going to work for them later in life. So there's that. Okay. There is a vaccine for coccidiosis. If you decide to do the vaccine, then don't do medicated feed. It's one or the other. Okay. I'm going to tell you this right now. I'm not a fan of the coccidiosis vaccine, because if you're going to go the medical route, if you've already decided to do that, then I would you have the medicated feed option, and it's actually safer than the vaccine. Okay. And it's pretty effective. So to me, that's a better option. There is at least one large hatchery in the United States that will not do the vaccine because they've seen so many adverse effects from it. And I'm not saying this as anybody that has an agenda. I promise you. Okay. I'm just telling you, I'm just giving you information. This is another thing that you'll have to do your own research on and decide what you're comfortable with. And as always, there's never going to be any judgment from me. Okay. It's just everybody's flock is different. And you might decide, you know what, this is what's best for my flock, and this is what I'm going to do. And nobody knows your flock better than you do. Okay. So that was a lot of information. That was a lot of information. And I was like, I don't even know if I'm going to get through this, because I just got back from Baltimore yesterday. It was a very quick trip. I was only there for one day, and I was there visiting Filbert Street Garden, which is this amazing place in Baltimore. But I'm not used to traveling like that. And so I'm kind of like cross-eyed right now. But here I am. Anyway, Okay, so in part 2 of this series, we're going to talk about the symptoms of coccidiosis. We're going to talk about how to identify it, and we're also going to talk about your treatment options if it does hit your flock, whether it's baby chicks or adult chickens. And I'll include some, just like the traditional options. We're going to talk about that. And then we'll also talk about some natural options as well. Okay, and some homeopathic options. So in the meantime, I hope this was really helpful to you. I hope you got some new information today. Okay. All right. I am going to answer the question that was submitted to me through my website, welcome to chickenlandia.com. But before I move on, I need to make 2 announcements because my friends, I'm traveling. Like I'm going places. This Chickenlandia thing is going places, but it's not cheap. I have to pay the chicken bills. Okay. The flights aren't free. The flight to Baltimore wasn't free. I got to get this chicken game off the ground. So got to earn something. So I want to let you know that as always, this podcast was brought to you by the folks at My Favorite Chicken. My Favorite Chicken is my favorite online shop to get my feed. I get my non-GMO, organic, and socially responsible scratch and peck feed there. I get my chicken supplies, my fun chicken treats like chicken fondue. Fun's even in the name. And so much more. Definitely go check them out. I will leave a link for you in the show notes, and there will be a coupon code for you. This podcast is also brought to you by the folks at Small Pet Select. Small Pet Select has an online shop that I know that I love, and I know you will love. And guess what? They are in the UK too. That's right. You heard me right. I know you're out there. Right now, I am loving their herbal supplements. I've been talking about them like in almost every video. I've been talking about the nettles. I've been talking about the plantain, almost every video. And then I also they have like pea flakes, and those are like potato chips for chickens. And they got some protein in them, and they're good for them, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Their flaked oyster shell is really good. You can check these and their other chicken products out by clicking the link in the show notes, and there is a coupon code for you there. And I do want to let you know they also have fun stuff for other little fuzzy animals like rabbits and chinchillas. So check them out. Okay, so let's answer the submitted question, and then I will open up the chat for questions. And I'm going to get a drink. It's just electrolytes. I have my Care Bears. I'm just crazy about Care Bears right now. I don't know why. Everything old is new again. Those are my Redmond Relight electrolytes, and I'm drinking the watermelon lime one. That's my favorite one. Watermelon lime. I'll leave that link for you too in the show notes. Okay. So let's answer the submitted question. This question is from Shelly, and Shelly asks, I saw you talking about bear proofing. Yep, that was me. I'm wondering, do you leave food out for them all day or feed sporadically? So I get asked this a lot. I don't leave food out for them. Right now I don't have a gravity feeder. I actually have one that I made, but I haven't been using it that much. Because just the way that I got used to feeding them and the way that works for me, and also really mainly to avoid predators and especially rodents, I feed my chickens in the morning as much as they will eat by the afternoon time. And at that point, I will give them enough scraps so that I can be sure that they're going to clean it all up before dusk. Okay? And I'm just telling you how I do it. I'm not saying this is the way that you have to do it, but I want to give you my reason for it. When food is left out, and especially if it gets left out overnight, you are really, really inviting rodents into your yard. Okay? And you're also inviting animals that either want the food or scraps in your yard, or that want to eat the smaller animals that are coming into your yard. So you're inviting rodents, You're inviting the animals that will come for those rodents, and you're inviting the predators that will come for the animals that were coming for the rodents. Okay. That's the level of what you're doing. So I really try not to leave anything in my yard overnight. I'm not perfect, but I really try to do that, even though I have a pretty predator-proof area for my chickens. Now, that being said, that doesn't mean that if you free feed with a gravity feeder that you're doing it wrong. I just want you to make sure that there's not a lot of waste around that feeder at the end of the day, and if possible, what you would really want to do is either move the feeder into a rodent-proof area overnight. So like take it out of your chicken yard and put it in the garage or in a shed that is rodent-proof, or feed your chickens in an area that's totally rodent-proof. So I just got back from Baltimore at Filbert Street Garden, and one of the things that they have that I thought was so clever is they have a big barrel feeder for their chickens, and it's a gravity feeder. It's this big metal barrel that they converted into a gravity feeder for their chickens because they have a pretty large flock. And that feeder is inside a shed. It's inside like a rodent-proof shed. So in the morning, they just open up the shed and the chickens go in there and eat. And then at night, they can close the shed. So I was like, oh, that's a really good idea. You know, not everybody can do that. We just do the best that we can. Okay. If you live in bear country, you have to be 100% more careful about leaving food and scraps out. It's so difficult to deal with bears. They can get through so much if they're motivated. I mean, we've seen the like videos of the bear just like shaking the car, trying to get in, and the whole car is moving. And they can do, if they're motivated to get into an area, even if they can't get through it, they can cause a lot of destruction. Like, you know, I mean, I have like 2 omelet coops, and then I have my big coop. And if you've seen my video about the bear that came to Chickenlandia, you know that I lost 2 chickens and they couldn't even get into the coop. They could not, the bear could not get into the coop. I just think that the bear looked through the window and probably shook the coop and, you know, made a whole bunch of noise, and that scared 2 of my chickens to death, because that can happen. Okay. And my omelet coops, those things, like a bear cannot get, they're like indestructible. And they're really, really predator proof. But a bear could shake one of those things. So it's like, it's tough with bears. So I'm going to leave a link for that video where I talk about bear proofing, because it's a lot of stuff that I talk about in that video. It's more detailed. I'll leave that link for you in the show notes, and that has a lot more information for you. But anyway, that's what I do. I'm not sure. I think I gave you more information than you needed, but I hope it helps. Okay. I am going to open up the chat for questions. If you can please write your question in all caps, it will be easier to see them. Like I have mentioned before, for some reason, words keep getting smaller the older that I get. Letters keep getting smaller the older I get. So I'm going to just look here. If you have a question, please post it in all caps. Oh, thank you, Joy. I'm so glad that you've learned a lot about nutrition this year. That's awesome. Plain yogurt is great to give them. And you know what? That's really good. I don't know why I didn't talk about that today, but you know, Joy in the chat is talking about giving your baby chicks and chickens some plain yogurt every once in a while. I do give whole milk yogurt. That would be my recommendation. But Joy says she gives 2 to 5% fat, which is fine too. But that's going to have good bacteria, and that's how really you want to support their whole systems. So, you know, you could do the whole plain yogurt, or you could do probiotics in their water or in their feed. Right now I'm using the Grubbly Farms probiotic, and it's like prebiotic plus probiotic. And that one's really good. So, and that one you just put in their water. It's really easy to give them. So that's another thing that you can do. It's just another level of prevention when it comes to stuff like coccidiosis and so many other things, because gut health is everything, like Joy was saying. Okay, my dog just made the weirdest sound. I promise you that was my dog. All right, Miss Superconductor asks, have you ever had a chicken with water belly? I have not had a chicken with water belly. I know that it is very difficult to treat, and eventually it will likely, there will be a point where it's not treatable anymore, but that's a tough one. And it requires long-term treatment. And usually, people, you can treat it at home. It's probably best to work with a vet for something like that. But there are people that are able to keep it under control and keep their chicken having a good quality of life for a period of time. But any chicken that has that condition is going to very likely lead a much shorter life than her flock mates. But I do really believe in quality of life. Is better than quantity of life. So I think if you're willing to treat them and to care for them, they're definitely a very lucky chicken. Okay. So someone, Robin says the mosquitoes are the worst this year. How do you get rid of those and keep other bugs safe for the chickens to eat? Gosh, that is tough, Robin. That is really tough. Like, I mean, in the coop, you could use like essential oils that mosquitoes don't like. Generally they don't like. Obviously, citronella would be one. I would not put that on your chickens or in your chickens. You can put it in like a diffuser, and not an active diffuser, but a passive diffuser in your coop. You could also put like lavender, mint, eucalyptus, stuff that will keep the mosquitoes away from the coop. And I would focus on that, like keeping the areas where your chickens are overnight as mosquito free as possible. There's only so much that you can do. Obviously, on your property, make sure that there's not standing water, and definitely not in your chicken yard. If you do have standing water, I know that the Chickenlandia presidential advisor uses something to keep the mosquitoes out of her pond. Kelsey, maybe you can talk about that in the chat. I don't have a lot of information about that. But if maybe I'll leave a link in the show notes. Kelsey can give it to me. That's the presidential Chickenlandia advisor. The Chickenlandia presidential advisor. That's who Kelsey is. So yeah, very difficult to control that. And some things, I'll say this. There's risk everywhere. There's literally, our environment is full of disease, okay? Potential disease. There's bacteria everywhere. There's protozoa everywhere. There's viruses everywhere. All these things are like, you have to have them for life. Like there would be no life with all these things, okay? So the trick is living in harmony with those things. And the way that the main thing that you can do, no matter what, is to support your chickens, nutritionally, emotionally, spiritually, in all these ways to keep their stress level down and to make them more resilient. So you want to think of it as from the inside out. So that no matter what hits your flock, they're going to have the best chance of dealing with it. Because there's no way of avoiding, you just can't. You can't avoid everything. And certainly not if you're like bringing other chickens into your flock and stuff like that. Like it depends on what you decide to do. But for someone like me, like I rescue chickens. So I absorb a lot of risk, and I've dealt with a lot of disease. And what I have seen over and over again is that there are chickens that no matter what gets into your flock, they survive. And it's because like you have to think like, okay, what is the difference between this chicken and then these other chickens that don't survive? And they're the ones with the vulnerabilities. So you want to build them up as much as you can. And then also like be at peace with it, you know, in yourself, because I really honestly believe, and this might sound kind of crazy to some of you, but our outlook and how we feel about it and how afraid we are and how you know, scared we are, that affects our flock too. So you just take a deep breath and say, you know what? I'm participating in nature, and that's a beautiful thing. And I'm giving these chickens this opportunity, and that's a beautiful thing. So focus on that. Okay. That was my my sermon for today. So the Naked Gardeners ask, does your chicken have coccidiosis if their vent is mucky? You know, maybe. That is an indicator for so many different things. It could be nothing. It could just be like, for whatever reason, maybe they ate a lot of watermelon and then they got a little bit of poop on their feathers, and then that collected and they ended up with a poopy butt. It could also like be the way that their feathers are. If they have like extra floofy butt, that can cause a poopy butt. It could also be a sign of a very serious infection. It could be a sign that your chickens have mites. Unfortunately, like it might not be poop. It might actually be eggs if you look at it really close. So it could be so many different things, but that would be one indicator. Okay. Joy says they love yogurt and then have it little messy faces. Pretty cute. Yes, it is. Okay, so Mary asks, new chicken owner, should I vaccinate? If so, what all for? You know, it really depends on that is such a it's a long answer, and I don't know that I'm prepared to answer it right now. I think what I will say to that is it really depends on your situation. Number one, it depends on your situation. It depends on your level of risk. You know, the two main vaccines for baby chicks, just off the top of my head, would be Merrick's and Coccidiosis. Like I said earlier today, I don't really recommend the Coccidiosis vaccine because there's medicated feed. So if you wanted to do this, go the synthetic route, if you wanted to go like a medical traditional route, I would just use medicated feed instead of doing the vaccine. The Merrick's one, I do have, I have a podcast that's all about Merrick's disease, where I talk about the vaccine. And I also have a long form video series on YouTube, and it's two different episodes where I talk about, you know, everything about Merrick's and the vaccine. And you know, people have different ideas about what they want to do with your flock, and I'm definitely like, you should have the choice to do whatever you think is appropriate for your flock. But it really would have to do with what the level of risk is, particularly in your situation. So that's my answer, and it's kind of like a non-answer, and I know it is, but I'm not going to tell you yes or no. Okay. That's just, I'm not going to. You need to, that is one choice that you'll have to make on your own. Okay. I'm sorry. You're probably like, what? But I will tell you, the Merrick's vaccine, like if you like these chickens need the vaccine when they hatch. Okay, so once they're in your yard and stuff, they probably already had exposure. Merrick's is everywhere. Coccidia is everywhere. Okay, so once they've had the exposure, like it's too late. They need to have the vaccine when they're really little. And the Merrick's vaccine, I think you can only buy it in like 1,000 dose vials. And there's, you know, a lot of special things that you have to do with it. So you could do it, you know, if you were hatching your own chicks, but it would be difficult to do that if you were buying them from a hatchery or you were getting them from the farm store. But you can usually tell the farm store, I want vaccinated chicks, or you can tell the hatchery, I want these chicks to be vaccinated. Some of them, that's their default, and some of them you need to tell them that's what I want. Okay. Love a Pup 01. Introduced new chickens in a run. I have 2 chickens to introduce to my flock of 4. The coop and run said it fits 12, but it should be less. I think 6 would do well. Not sure. I can't free range. Okay, I'm not completely getting the question. Love a Pup. I'm sorry. I don't really understand what the question is. So, if you can write me again and just now I have that information, but tell me specifically what your question is. Okay. Tell this is not a question, but I'm going to answer it. Julie says, "Tell us about all your cute glasses." Okay. My name is Dahlia, and I have a problem. I'm addicted to glasses. I have so many pairs of glasses. I don't even know how many pairs I have. I think I have like 10 pair, and I just bought 2 more pair too. I really like bling, and what I tell my husband is like, you know what? These are on my face, and they need to be nice. So it could be worse, I could be a drunk. Okay. I'm not. So I buy a lot of glasses. So what? Most of my pairs are from a company called Caviar, which is very expensive. But I will tell you can get them a lot cheaper if you go on eBay and get them. Like I realized that recently. So, but yeah, I love glasses. Shelly asks, what do you do when chickens like to spend more time in the chicken coop than go outside? Well, it depends on why they're doing that. I mean, if there's a reason why they're doing that, if they enjoy it or whatever, then I would say it's fine. If they want to be in the chicken coop, then that's fine. Now, what happens sometimes, and people don't realize what's going on, is that their chickens are in the nesting boxes and they won't leave the nesting boxes. And then they reach into the nesting box to get the eggs, and the chicken goes, rah, or makes this awful noise. And that means your chicken is broody. So that chicken has this instinct activated in their bodies, where they really are in the mood to raise baby chicks, to sit on eggs, hatch them out, and raise those baby chicks. So there's that. That might be one reason why they don't want to leave the coop. Now, if they are standing in the coop and looking listless and not being very active and not eating, not drinking, then I would be worried about that. Like, that's a sign that something wrong is going on. The other thing is, if they don't want to leave the coop because they're scared of the other chickens that are outside of the coop, that could be an issue too. So these are all things you want to figure out. And, but if they just like being in the coop, maybe it's too hot outside or whatever, they don't want to go out of the coop. If they seem healthy, I wouldn't worry about it. Okay. I am going to answer one more question, but before I do that, I want to remind you guys about my book. Don't forget, I have a book. It's available to order. It's currently on Amazon. It's at Barnes & Nobles. It's at your local bookstore, maybe. If not, tell them to get it. I will leave a link for you in the show notes. It's called Let's All Keep Chickens, the down-to-earth guide to natural practices for healthier birds in a happier world. And it's definitely one of the best things I have ever done. Yes, I did write another book. It's not going to come out for like a year. So in the meantime, get this one. This is the prequel, okay? Get this one, all right? Check it out, and thank you so much to those of you who already have it. Thank you to you. Okay, let's see. Did we get one more question? Hold on. Who's Your Pioneer said, I have a broody right now in this awful heat and humidity. Yeah, it's like what are you doing? Like, it is so hot outside. What do you, and then there'll be like more than one. And it's like, what? Luckily, I don't live in an area that gets really hot. Oh my gosh, Baltimore. It was so hot. And I grew up in Texas. So I'm not a stranger to the heat, but I'm just not used to it anymore. Like I haven't lived in Texas in 30 years. So now I can't go back in the summer. I just can't because it's so hot. But Baltimore was a shock. I was like, I was there for a photo shoot because this garden is featured in my book. So it was, we did it in the morning. We started at like 7 a.m. and it was quite hot it was already hot then. And then it was really hot, like an hour later. Jill had a question. Okay, let me look for her question. And Mary, baby Ivar is doing great. Baby Ivar is doing great. Let's see. Jill. Are there any treats or chicken scraps I shouldn't give my 10-week-old chips? Chips. Don't give them Fritos. I shouldn't give my 10-week-old chicks. Okay. I would give them, you can give them anything that you can give your adult chickens. But the main thing is that you always want to be mindful of how much you're giving them and making sure that they're eating that they have a balanced diet. So, in Chickenlandia, we have something called the Chickenlandia chicken food pyramid. And it's basically like, it looks like the pyramid that we got in the 80s, but it's much better than that one. And it actually makes sense. So, the bottom tier of the pyramid is their starter feed or their grower feed that you have them on, whichever one you have them on. And so that you want that to be, if you're doing feed, you want that to be the bulk of their diet. Okay. And then above that, you have leafy greens, and like low sugar fruits. So mostly leafy greens, sprouts, stuff like that. That's going to be really good for them. And when they're baby chicks, they might not eat it as much, but you're like exposing them to it. It's kind of like when you have a toddler and they tell you, hey, always put vegetables on their plate, even if they don't eat them. And you're like, why am I doing this every time? Like, I'm glad I have chickens because I have to throw this out every single time. But what you're doing is kind of getting them used to the presence of these healthy foods. And eventually they're going to start eating them. And then the top tier would be like, healthy proteins, treats. I would put yogurt in that tier, which is really good for them, but you don't want them to have like a lot of it. So that's what I would focus on mostly. And then, what I tell people, because a lot of the information out there about like, oh, you can't give your chickens this and you can't give your chickens that. And if they, and a lot of that, to be very honest with you, is not like, it might not be false, but it's not completely true. Like, people say, don't ever give your chickens citrus. That's going to kill them. And that's not true. Like, they won't die if they eat citrus. A large amount of citrus could maybe affect their laying. So that's where that comes from. Okay. It could maybe affect their calcium levels. That's where that comes from. It's not like dangerous if they get some orange or something like that. So, and then there's the thing about avocado where people are like really terrified of avocado. The flesh is okay. The pit and the skin is not, in a large quantity wouldn't be good for them, but they're not going to eat that. Like, they just don't eat that. And animals, like, take it from me, like, my family is from Guatemala and there's a lot of chickens eating avocado down there. So it's, and then some people are like apples and like all this stuff that's like, okay, we need to think like reasonably about this. Like, animals have been, and chickens have been around these foods for a long time. They've been around them because we've eaten them. So what I would focus on above everything else is feeding them healthy. And like, the great thing is when you start eating healthier, your chickens start eating healthier. And sometimes it's the other way around. You want to feed your chickens healthier, so you start eating healthier. So no one eats better than my chickens over here. Okay. All right, friends. Thank you so much. I'm like sweating because I'm having a hot flash, so it's time to go. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you to my moderator and my co-producer, Kelsey Paulus, also known as the Chickenlandia Presidential Advisor. Thank you to Talking to Crows for editing this episode, and to Double M Ranch for their wonderful podcast art. If you enjoyed this podcast, please remember to rate and review it. That really, really helps me, okay, when you guys do that. And also remember that you, yes, I mean you, are always welcome in Chickenlandia. Bye. All right, let's see if I can figure out how to turn this thing off. Every time.